I was 18 when I first realized I had been holding my breath for most of my life. It wasn't a sudden thing. It was more like waking up slowly from a long dream where everything felt muffled and gray. For years I had been walking through school hallways in jeans that hung loose on my hips and sweatshirts that swallowed my frame. I never thought much about it. That was just what boys wore. That was just what I was supposed to be. But something shifted in me during the spring of senior year. I started noticing things I had trained myself not to see. The way sunlight caught in the fabric of a girl's skirt as she walked past. The softness of a sweater draped over someone's shoulders. The careful attention in the way people chose colors that made them feel alive. I watched these things the way you might watch a language being spoken in a country you'd never visited but somehow felt was home. My name is Dylan Cooper. I grew up in a small town in Oregon where everyone knew everyone and nothing much changed from year to year. My father left when I was 12. My mother worked 2 jobs and came home tired but never angry. She had this way of moving through the world that was quiet and steady. I loved her for that. I think I got my quietness from her. I had friends, Matthew Taylor and Thomas Moore. We played video games and complained about homework and talked about girls in the way teenage boys are supposed to talk about girls. Except I never really felt what they felt. When Matthew pointed out a girl named Jessica in our math class and said she was hot, I nodded along. But what I was really looking at was the ribbon she had tied in her hair, the way it moved when she turned her head. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I was gay. But that didn't feel right either. I didn't look at Matthew or Thomas and feel attraction. I looked at them and felt nothing but friendship. What I felt was something else. Something I didn't have a name for yet. It started with my hair. One Saturday morning I woke up and couldn't stand the sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. My hair was shapeless and dull. It hung around my face like dead grass. I had been using the same cheap shampoo my whole life. The kind that came in a big plastic bottle and smelled like nothing. That morning I reached for my mother's shampoo instead. It was in a purple bottle and it smelled like lavender and vanilla. I stood under the hot water and worked it through my hair and felt something I had never felt before. I felt like I was touching myself with kindness. When I got out of the shower, I used her conditioner too. My hair felt softer than it ever had. I stood in front of the mirror with a towel around my waist and ran my fingers through it. For the first time in a long time, I didn't look away from my own reflection. At dinner that night, my mother looked at me across the table and smiled. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she noticed. Her eyes lingered on my hair for just a second longer than usual. It made me feel seen. It made me feel less alone. The next week I did something I had never done before. I called a salon. Not a barber shop. The kind of place where people sat under dryers and flipped through magazines. When the woman on the phone asked what I needed, I said I wanted a haircut. She asked if I had a stylist preference and I said no. She booked me for Thursday afternoon with someone named Emily. I almost didn't go. I stood outside the salon for 5 minutes trying to talk myself into walking through the door. There were big windows and I could see people inside getting their hair washed and cut and styled. Most of them were women. I felt like I was about to step into a space that wasn't meant for me. But then I thought about my reflection in the bathroom mirror and I thought about how tired I was of hiding. So I pushed the door open and walked inside. Emily was younger than I expected. Maybe late 20s. She had short blonde hair and a kind smile. She led me to a chair and asked what I wanted. I didn't know how to answer. I had never thought about what I wanted before. I had only ever thought about what I was supposed to want. She seemed to understand. She pulled out a magazine and flipped through pages of hairstyles. She pointed to a few and asked what I thought. I kept saying I didn't know. Finally, she stopped on a picture of a model with hair that swept across one eye. It was straight and smooth and the fringe hung long and dramatic. Something inside me lit up when I saw it. That one, I said. She smiled like she had been waiting for me to find it. She draped a cape around my shoulders and tilted my head back into the sink. The warm water ran over my scalp and her fingers worked shampoo into my hair. I closed my eyes. I felt like I was floating. When she finished cutting my hair, she spun me around to face the mirror. I barely recognized myself. The fringe fell across my right eye and the back just touched the bottom of my neck. I looked softer. I looked like someone I had been searching for. "Do you like it?" Emily asked. I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. She showed me how to style it with gel, how to sweep the fringe just right. She gave me tips on keeping it smooth and shiny. When I left the salon, I walked differently. I held my head higher. I felt like I had taken the first step towards something I couldn't name yet but desperately needed. My mother noticed immediately. I walked into the kitchen and she looked up from the stove and her eyes went wide. "Dylan," she said, "your hair." I braced myself for criticism. For her to tell me I looked ridiculous. For her to ask what I was thinking. Instead, she smiled. "It looks beautiful." I felt my eyes burn. I blinked fast and nodded. "Thanks, Mom." She asked where I got it done. She asked if I liked it. She asked if I knew how to style it myself. We sat at the kitchen table and talked about hair for almost an hour. She told me about cuts she had tried when she was younger. She told me about the time she dyed her hair red and hated it. She told me she thought it was brave that I was trying something new. I wanted to tell her it wasn't just about hair. I wanted to tell her I felt like I was peeling away layers of something that had been suffocating me for years. But I didn't know how to say it. So I just nodded and smiled and felt grateful that she didn't ask too many questions. School was a different story. I walked through the front doors on Monday morning and felt every eye in the hallway turn toward me. Some people didn't recognize me at first. I walked right past Thomas and he didn't even glance my way. When he finally did a double take, he jogged up beside me and said, "Dude, what the hell happened to your hair?" I shrugged. "Got it cut." "Why?" "Felt like it." Matthew joined us at lunch. He stared at me for a long time before saying, "You look like a girl." I felt my stomach twist. I kept my voice calm. "I look like me." He didn't push it, but I could tell he thought I was going through some kind of phase. Some kind of breakdown. I didn't care. Or maybe I did care, but I refused to let it show. The girls were different. A girl named Susan from my English class stopped me in the hallway and said my hair looked amazing. Another girl named Jennifer touched it gently and asked where I got it done. They talked to me more after that. Not because they were interested in me romantically, but because I had become someone they could talk to about things they cared about. I became a safe space. A boy who understood. And while they talked, I watched. I watched the way they dressed. The way they chose colors and fabrics. The way they wore things that made them feel confident or pretty or powerful. I started to understand that clothes weren't just functional. They were a language. They were a way of saying things you couldn't say out loud. I wanted to speak that language too. I started small. I went shopping one Saturday with money I had saved from mowing lawns. I didn't know where to look. The men's section felt wrong. Everything was baggy and shapeless. Everything was designed to hide the body instead of show it. I wandered into a store that sold clothes for both men and women. The kind of place where everything looked expensive and carefully curated. A young guy who worked there asked if I needed help. He had tattoos on his arms and a nose ring. He didn't look at me like I was strange. He just smiled and waited. "I'm looking for pants," I said. "Something tight." He nodded like that was the most normal request in the world. He disappeared into the back and came out with 2 pairs of jeans. One black and one dark blue. He handed them to me and pointed toward the fitting rooms. I locked the door behind me and pulled off my shoes. I tried the blue ones first. They wouldn't go past my thighs. I tried the black ones next. They were hard to pull on. I had to lie down on the bench and shimmy into them. When I finally got them up and buttoned, I stood and looked in the mirror. They clung to my legs like a second skin. They sat low on my hips. I could see the shape of my body in a way I never had before. I felt exposed. I felt vulnerable. I felt right. I opened the door. The guy was waiting outside. I wish I could tell you everything that happened next, but this is as far as I can go here. If you want to see how the story really unfolds, the uncut and censored version, you can find the full book on Amazon. You'll find the link in both the description and pinned comment. See you on the other side.